Yeah, my name is Bill Watral. I'm the effects supervisor for Incredibles 2. I work at Pixar. Here at the View Conference to share some stuff.
So the first thing I want to ask is if you could talk a little about the role you feel this View Conference plays out there in the landscape.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great resource for students in the area and students from around Europe to come and learn about some of the work that they're interested in. And then I think for professionals around the area too, it's a great place to come and hear stories from all their peers. Yeah.
How many of you come to, and also what are your thoughts about this new venue at OGR?
Sure, yeah, I've been to two. I was at one years ago at the old venue, and this is my first time here at the new venue because it's the new venue. Yeah, it's great. It's a beautiful venue. I just gave a presentation this morning in the room that starts with a D. I forget how you say it, but it was a gorgeous room. The sound system was great. The projection was wonderful. And I actually managed to get the audience engaged a little bit, so it was small enough that we could interact, but big enough that the screen was huge and everybody could look at really cool pictures, very large.
So we are in Italy, and I wanted to start by talking about the global nature of the animation business, specifically at Pixar. It's a beautiful studio there in Emeryville about, tapping into people and talent from all over the world.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we have a completely global workforce at Pixar. We have people from all different countries, and we all kind of come together and put our heads together to make the films. I think Pixar as a company embraces minds from all over the world to try to help us make the pictures, for sure.
And now let's switch a little bit to technology. If you could give us a sense, even though you weren't necessarily working on the original, how far technology has advanced from the original Incredibles to what you guys were able to do with Incredibles 2.
Sure. Yeah, it's been 14 years since the first Incredibles, and it's like a quantum leap from where we were at the time. And while I didn't work on the first one, I was in the industry at the time doing other work that was similar at the time. So I know the pains they went through to put those pictures up on the screen. And we had our own set of pains to put up on the screen, but it was a very different set of problems that we had because the technology has just come so far. From the effects standpoint, we did not really have at all a pipeline in effects at Pixar for sure. But then at most places, it was very ad hoc. You were writing simulators, you were building things for what you needed to do based on the production. Nowadays, we have these amazingly full-featured tool sets like Houdini and other packages out there. We personally use Houdini, but the tool set is so broad, and they've spent so long on it and so much time on it that it really is the backbone for everything. We still do custom stuff on top of that, but we have that backbone to build on, and then that tool integrates so well into all the other proprietary stuff that we have at Pixar. We have a very kind of nice skeletal structure now to work through really difficult problems and get huge amounts of geometry, huge amounts of data, really complex lighting and shading setups into the renderer to make the pictures.
What did that open up in your department creatively from a visual storytelling perspective?
Yeah. I mean, the more time you have to spend tweaking the pictures and making them look good, the better the pictures are going to look, right? So the less time you're spending writing simulators or figuring out how to fix complex problems within the code, the more time you're going to have available to make the pictures prettier, So a good example is Frozone on the first film, right? Like it was a bear to get that stuff up on the screen to even look close to what realized looks like, right? And a lot of smart people put their heads into trying to figure that problem out. And on the new film, we could put all the bells and whistles into it. We could make it, fully refractive and reflective. We could have, all the scattering and everything internally to the geometry, and then we can build all these complex simulations on top of it. And we could do that because we could spend the time to do that instead of just figuring out how to get the ice to render, right? Or to write a simulator to have a little bit of, falling CO2 like smoke come off of it. And then that I can expand out into all the effects on the film. There's water, there's snow, there's fire, there's lots of destruction, So it just gives you way more time to make the pictures look
You've worked on multiple sequels while at Pixar. When you guys are jumping into a new film, is there a start from scratch mentality, or is anything shared from the past?
Yeah, we share as much as we can. You know, for a situation like Incredibles being 14 years, right? We're gonna have to recreate a lot of stuff, right? But we do pull everything we possibly can from the old film. In particular, all of the reference, all of the art, all of the production design, right? Like all that stuff is reused, and then we build on top of it. So again, going to the Frozone thing, like that was our stake in the ground, was Frozone's ice in the first film, you know. An interesting place that we deviated completely was Jack Jack Fire. It was really only in the short. It was in Jack Jack Attack. In this film, the fire features a lot, and we kind of inverted the whole sort of visual style of Jack Jack on Fire, whereas before he was bright internally. Now we went dark internal and bright on the edges, and we inverted his eyes, where instead of them being, you know, the structure that they were, we inverted the colors so they were bright, and they really helped the acting. And because we could iterate a lot faster on something like Fire, we could hit those visual targets. But we definitely go back to that first film, and we, you know, pull as much stuff as we possibly can.
Was Jack Jack one of the most challenging, given all the different abilities versus the other characters and their abilities?
They're all kind of equal, you know. You take that work, you think about what's entailed, and then you spread it out to a bunch of artists. And I think everybody had their own unique set of challenges. I don't want to pick favorites or the hardest or whatever, you know, but it was all hard stuff. It really was. But super rewarding, right? The harder the stuff is, the more rewarding it is. So yeah, I think it's fun.
How does what's available and what's doable in today's technology, and it's like obviously it's 3 years back when you guys were working on it, impact the storyline and what they're trying to accomplish when it comes to superpowers?
Yeah, so we have a thing, particularly at Pixar, but I think a lot of studios do this, where we really try not to let the complexity or the difficulty of something steer the story process. We really like to let the story artists just be completely out there and come up with any ideas they possibly can before we start to talk about whether we can do that or not. And you know, honestly, at this point in time, like there's a lot of stuff that we can do, and there's a lot smaller chunk of things that we can't do. So that's more and more comfortable, I think, for all of us over the years. But on this one in particular, Incredibles, because we had such a compressed schedule, we did kind of interact a lot more than we would normally, more so we were sure we could plan and get things in place. So, you know, as an example, I was meeting with the head of story on a weekly basis to just talk about what was coming out of the script and what they were thinking about drawing for it, you know, to figure out what maybe in the effects department I needed to plan for sooner rather than later, instead of waiting for it to get all the way through a story review, get Brad to feel comfortable about it, then get it into layout, then get it laid out in 3D, and then me raise the flag and say, hey guys, we only have 2 months to do the sequence. There's absolutely no way we can do this, right? So if I'm aware earlier and I'm starting to talk to the guys who are drawing the storyboards about cool new stuff we could do that they didn't even think about, then that's great for them. But if they're telling me, no, we don't want to do that stuff, we want to do this really complex thing, it gives me an opportunity to also say, like, I don't know, how long do we have to do the sequence? You know, so it was, on Incredibles, it was a little more of a back and forth than it would be normally, because we knew we had such a short amount of time to get it done in.
The original Incredibles predated the entire Marvel superhero universe that has taken over Hollywood over the last decade. What do you think it is about these characters, these superheroes, that has stood the test of time?
I think it's the mundane. You know, Brad talks about this a lot, where you can have the incredible as long as you couple it with the mundane, right? And I think, for me personally, being only an audience member for the first Incredibles, the thing that really sold those characters for me was that he's sneaking out to be a superhero, and he's coming home to his family, and his wife's mad at him for going out and doing superhero work. They're normal people. They have a fight at the dinner table. You know, Elastigirl, you know, Helen is trying to keep the kids apart with her powers because they're going at each other around the dinner table with their superpowers. It's like, it just makes life even more complicated to have superpowers. So for me, I think the reason that Incredibles really cemented itself so strongly in people's minds is that balance between, these are real people and they just have superpowers. And Brad did a really good job of that in the first film, and hopefully we carried that through to the second film too.
And this is more of a general question, but you've worked on multiple sequels at Pixar as well as multiple completely original IPs. Is one more challenging than the other?
Yeah, that's hard, is it? No, I think they all produce, they all provide their own unique challenges. I could probably pick and choose over the years of the things that were hardest for me personally, but I think across the board, they all end up being just as hard. It's really hard to make films, and it's really hard to do a film that is basically 100% visual effects, right? Because that's what we're doing when we're making animated films. We can't go out, and not that it's easier, but we can't go out and we can't go out and shoot backplates and then bring those backplates in and use those as our kind of foothold to what the film's going to look like. We have to generate all that from scratch. We have to plan it, we have to design it, we have to make decisions about it along the way. Live action guys are doing that too. They're doing it on location scouts, and they're doing it with lens choices, and they're doing it with cameras, right? So they're solving the same problems, but they're solving them at a different time than we solve them. So I feel like the biggest challenge in general is trying to generate this entire world inside a computer. It's just really hard.
But at the same time, the technology is always getting better, so it kind of slightly makes it easier, but I'm assuming that they're also trying to push you to go further and further with each iteration.
Yeah, and we push ourselves. You give me 5 more megabytes of memory and I'm going to use it. I'm going to make more snow, or I'm going to make the water bigger, or something like that. And that's across the board. The directors, the writers, the story guys, the filmmakers, the VFX artists, the lighters, the sets guys, the character guys, everybody. They want to absolutely put the best stuff they can up on the screen. So we're going to, the technology doesn't, as it moves forward, it doesn't make it easier for us. It just allows us to make it harder for ourselves.
And the last thing, if you could talk a little about someone who's aspiring to enter the visual effects business today, what besides coming to a conference like this, what other advice?
Yeah, for me, if you're interested in getting into visual effects, I was talking about this a little bit this morning too, is just be observant. Live your life from a collector of information's viewpoint. A little bit of scientist, a little bit of artist. It really helps to open yourself to the world around you and see why things do what they do. Why does the camera lens flicker over here when something's happening? Why? Being curious about the world, I think that's the first step. And then finding those things that interest you in the things that you don't understand. And that's what led me to where I am, is trying to think about complex kind of physical reactions in the world. That's what kind of led me into effects. So I think the most important thing is to be a curious person and to kind of balance that observational with what interests you.